Hi, my name is Kate Taylor. I'm the Circulation Generalist at the Edgar Allan Poe Branch Library, and today we're going to make some mixed media art. So mixed media is a really great way to express yourself, number one. One of the things I love about it, well, two things I love about it. Number one, you don't have to have an art background, so if you feel like you are not comfortable drawing or painting, that would be me. That's great. The other thing that's really fun about it is you can use things that you probably already have in your house. So you want to open up those junk drawers, don't be scared, get in there, rummage around, and I'm sure that you can find a lot of great objects to use in mixed media art. There are a few things that you should have beforehand though, not many, but I'm just going to go over them real quick so you're prepared. The number one thing you're going to need is some type of a surface. Now, I'm using just regular watercolor paper. You can use a bunch of different things, but we're going to start very easy with just regular watercolor paper. You're going to need an adhesive. That's the most important thing. Now, you could use Elmer's glue, which is great. But the problem with just using regular glue is that mixed media is layered. So you want to kind of think of it like a sandwich. The first layer, adhesive, you can use glue and it's great. After that, it gets a little bit messy because you want something that's going to act as a sealant in between each layer as we build our sandwich. So I'm going to recommend that you get some Mod Podge. This is a great product because number one, it's inexpensive. Number two, you can find it pretty much anywhere. If you don't have a craft store near you, you can order it online. And it's kind of a 3-in-1 really. And the way that it works, you put your first layer down for your adhesive, you let that dry. Then with mixed media, it's like I said, it's the sandwich. It's all about layering. So your second layer, you're going to do another layer of Mod Podge, let that dry. Your next layer, however many layers you want to do, you can go crazy with it. And then when you're all done, everything is dry, if you want to put a final layer on kind of a sealant coat, you can do that with Mod Podge. So like I said, it's a 3-in-1. I think it's a very easy product to use and I really, really like it. It's also non-toxic, which is nice if you want to get the kids involved, because we know kids love making a big mess, and they will certainly make a big mess with this, as I will demonstrate. So this Mod Podge that I'm using is a gloss luster. It comes in different types of finishes. There's a matte finish, which is not shiny, and then you can get, I think there's a semi-gloss and then the gloss. It's really up to you, whatever you like. Like I said, it's a 3-in-1 product, but you can experiment around with it a little bit. So that's the most important thing. Now I will say, if you're going to be doing this on cardboard, which you can, so if you're going to do that, you're going to want to get a product like gesso. I'm not going to use gesso today, but gesso is similar to Mod Podge, but it acts as a primer. So if you're using something that's very porous, you don't want all that paint to just kind of disappear and get streaky looking, you're going to need to prime it with some gesso. Like I said, we're not going to use gesso today, we're going to stick with Mod Podge, but just so you know. The other things that I'm going to be using today are pretty simple. You might already have it at home. Paintbrushes, I love the sponge brushes, inexpensive, all kinds of different sizes. So you definitely want to avoid oil paint. If you're going to use paint, I would go with acrylic or a water-based paint. I'm using acrylic today because I really like the consistency of it. So this is just regular acrylic paint that I got at the craft store, the dollar store or something. Scissors are very handy, and I'll show you why. Obviously, you're going to want to cut things out, but the fun thing about it is you can really use your hands. So with mixed media, you're doing a lot of tearing, so it's a really good way to get your frustrations out. I like using sheet music just because I have a ton of it at my house. These are just pieces that I don't play anymore. But you can use a variety of things: tissue paper, wrapping paper, book pages, old maps, lace, fabric scraps. Sewers and quilters, I know you have a ton of fabric scraps. Great idea to use them up. Cardboard, or not cardboard, sorry, construction paper, just plain construction paper. Your kids probably have a ton of it in their room. You can sneak in there at night and take it and they won't even know. Lace is also a nice thing to put on just because it gives a little bit of texture. This lace is kind of a beige color. You could use any color. But one thing I wanted to recommend or suggest for you, if you have something that you maybe feel is too white, you can tea stain it, which is very simple. Hot water, tea bag, put the lace in, let it get however dark you want it, and then just take it out and dry. So it kind of gives a nice vintage, kind of an old-fashioned look, if that's the look that you're gonna go for. If you're tearing up things to use as your first layer of the sandwich, I would strongly suggest that you get more than you think you're gonna need, because remember, with mixed media, it's the sandwich, it's layered. So you're gonna need more than you think you're gonna need. Get it all torn up and ready to go. If you're gonna have anything that you need to have cut out into a shape, this is gonna be a tree, I would suggest getting that ready ahead of time as well. And really you're all set to go. So let's get started. I wanted to show you 2 ways of making the first layer for your mixed media art piece. The first way is very, very easy. It is using just regular acrylic paint, and we're going to paint a piece of paper with acrylic paint, and then we're gonna put plastic wrap on top of it. Sounds weird, I know, but when you let the plastic wrap dry overnight, you get a kind of a textured look here. So it makes it a little bit more interesting than just a plain flat color. So the way we're gonna do it, we're gonna start with plain acrylic paint, and you're just gonna paint your paper or your cardboard that you've primed with gesso. And the thing that I love about mixed media is you don't have to be neat. You can be messy and throw yourself in there with abandon. You're gonna take plain old plastic wrap. Let's see if I can get it off without wrapping myself up in it. Okay. So you're gonna put the plastic wrap on. The trick with this is you don't want to smooth it out. I know we normally are so conscious of making things nice and neat and smooth. That kind of negates the purpose with this. What's gonna happen is the air is gonna get underneath, and it's gonna go into all the little air bubbles that we created. From experience, I can tell you, once it's on there, don't move it. It's not gonna look the way you want. So just throw it on there, leave it overnight. The next day, you're gonna take the plastic wrap off, and we're gonna have this type of texture. If a little bit of paint comes off when you tear off the plastic wrap, that's okay. You can always touch it up or leave it if you like the way it looks. So that is technique number 1. So the second way, the second layer technique that I'm going to show you is probably kind of the more classic mixed media. You're gonna take your Mod Podge and you're gonna pour just a little bit out. This is the tricky part. This is the only tricky part. You want to make sure, again, you have everything you need ready, because once you get going, you really don't want to have to stop and try to cut out some things or, you know, find some other things to put on. So don't worry about what it's going to look like at the end. You just want to enjoy the journey and get there. You want to try to get most of the surface covered, but you can always go back if you missed a spot. That's the beauty of mixed media. It's very forgiving. Now, Mod Podge on the instructions, it says it takes about a half an hour to dry in between layers. Down here where it's so humid, that's not quite true. I found it takes a couple of hours to dry. So I'm gonna switch to a smaller brush. And this is kind of the fun part. This is the part that kids love too. So you wanna start and you're gonna seal everything down. Remember, this is okay to get on your hands. So you're not being neat here. This is a very sloppy sandwich. It's gonna probably fall apart as soon as you bite it, but that's okay. We're getting in some nice layering here. And I like to mix it up a little bit with tissue paper, but you don't have to if you want to just go with whatever it is that you're using, a map, sheet music, etc. Just kind of throw it on there. I think that this is a really nice way to, like I said, if you're a little nervous about art, maybe you don't consider yourself to be an arty person or a crafty person, this is pretty painless. It's a very easy way to start getting creative. The one thing you do want to do is try to not have a bunch of big wrinkles because they're gonna dry in a way that you probably won't like. So there are a lot of different things that you can use mixed media for. Obviously, we're doing something very, very simple, just a little collage, but you could buy a notebook with a cardboard cover and decorate the cover and make it into a nice journal. You can do make cards for people. Who doesn't love a handmade card, right? I love handmade cards. So with this project, we are going to be incorporating some origami birds, and there is another video, another library video, that will show you how to make origami animals, if most of us don't know how to do that. It's a very great, it's a really fun way of using them, putting them in a mixed media, because again, mixed media is all about texture and patterns and layering. So if you're doing this over the painted background, you could leave some empty spots for it to show through, which is always kind of a nice effect. So layer number one, congratulations, you did it. Like I said, I would normally let this dry for a couple of hours because it's been so humid lately down here. But I'm gonna speed it up a little bit because I'm impatient. I'm gonna speed it up with a hairdryer. Okay, so I dried the first layer with my hair dryer for, I don't know, maybe 5 minutes. It's still a little bit tacky, but for our purposes, it's good to go. But you would definitely want it to be a little bit drier than what it is now. So I'm gonna do a tree with some birds, our origami birds, and I cut this out obviously ahead of time. So kind of before you just want to position it a little bit like where you think you're going to want it before you start with the Mod Podge. And again, the Mod Podge is the adhesive and the sealant. So you're going to want to come in here, get your kind of your second layer started. So once you get it down, try not to pick it up and move it because it's already starting to seal. You're gonna just kind of lightly go over this. This is gonna dry clear, so don't worry about the streakiness. Now I'm gonna put a third layer on while this is still wet. And I'm just doing lace just to give the tree a little bit of texture. Again, with mixed media, you don't have to worry about coloring in the lines. It's really about texture and unexpected texture too, which is, I think, kind of fun. So you're gonna, now the lace is a little bit tricky, so you're gonna have to hold it a little bit while you're getting it down there. But so I'm also going to come in with some branches, kind of right there is where I want it. Again, you're gonna sort of eyeball it a little bit before you get your Mod Podge down. And again, with mixed media art, a lot of times it's really not about the actual object. It's about the idea of the object. So you can be kind of abstract with it. Okay, so I have some leaves that I cut out of construction paper. One great thing that you can use are, what are they called? Like paint chips, I guess they call it. The little card that has all the colors on it that you can get at the hardware store. Those are fantastic because there are hundreds of colors to choose from, maybe even thousands, and they're free. So you're gonna wanna just kind of throw some leaves on, just kind of willy-nilly is what we're doing. All right, so we've got some leaves on. You can put a ton of leaves. Maybe this is sort of early fall and it's losing its leaves, but I'm not gonna put any more leaves on for this. So we actually have 3 layers here. We have the first layer, which is the sheet music, the second layer, which is the tree, and the third layer, which is the lace. And these are origami birds. Now these are something that you can make. You can watch the video that Charleston County Public Library has on how to make origami animals. For this, because these are, they kind of stick up a little bit. Now I flattened these under a book, but they're not super flat. So for these, I'm not gonna Mod Podge them on. I'm gonna actually just glue them on. You wanna eyeball it. Don't put it down, because once it's down, it's gonna be really hard to get up because we've got all these layers. Now normally I would let this all dry, but again, just in essence of time, I'm just gonna go ahead and put them on and we're gonna see what happens. So I have, some of these birds are sitting birds and some of them are flying birds. So I'm gonna do a little bit of each and just think about, where you want it to sit. Like it could sit there. So I'm just kind of using my brush to kind of get him down there. Okay, so there's one. We can have one flying, and I found it better if I put the glue on the bird and not on the paper. And you can, if you don't have origami birds just hanging around your house, you can always cut things out of a magazine. Animals, birds, trees, people, whatever you want. Really, the only limit with this type of art is really just your imagination. You can really just kind of go crazy with it. All right, so we have some birds on the tree and a couple flying. I like to use lettering. Now, if you have really beautiful handwriting, you can always handwrite something, but you can also use letters that you cut out of a magazine. Let's see. Kind of throw those on. Again, they don't have to be straight, they don't have to be even, they don't have to match. All right, so we're almost done. I wanted to go in and put in some little sequins. They're just little metallic sequins, and so I'm just kind of putting them around. And I'm not going to go back and do a sealer on these. And the reason I'm not going to go over this is because they're really, really delicate and they bend easily. So I'm going to just let all this dry, and then we're done. So this is a very basic kind of a media, mixed media 101. So I wanted to, I'm just going to move this over here and show you a finished one. So this is one that I did a few days ago. It's pretty similar, but you can see it's completely dry, but you see the nice kind of lustrous finish that you get. And again, this is using the Mod Podge gloss. If you don't like that, it's too shiny, that's fine. You can get Mod Podge matte and it will take away the shine. So I hope you enjoyed your time with me today, and like I said, clear out your junk drawer and start creating art.